So, hello and welcome to the Kendall MMA full card prediction and breakdown for UFC 310, Alexandre Pantoja versus Kaya Sakura. I'm going to go through the entire card one by one, every single fight, and give you my prediction of who I think will win that fight. It's a pretty simple concept. You should pretty much know the whole deal. Now, I do have a Tapology group. If you want to join that, feel free. Link is in the description down below. Once we get more members in the future, I will be offering prizes to the top predictor of the week, just pretty much once I finally get my work schedule figured out and how I can make content, because it has been about 2 weeks. And so if you've been waiting for more content from me this past 2 weeks, I'm sorry. But from now on, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure I'm going to keep this channel afloat and alive, and I will be posting more content from now on. This will not be a normal thing for me anymore. Just a quick 2 week break. I'm going to be posting at least 3 to 4 times a week from now on. But again, back to the whole Topology group. If you want to join that, links in the description down below. But let's get right into these predictions. So I want to do this with one take. I don't want to be sitting here for 30 years and editing a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to just go ahead and break down this entire card. Now, as you can see, we have the first fight of the card, which is Kane Nzechukwu versus Lucas Bursky. And if I have to be honest with you here, I think this one is going to be a fairly easy win for Nzechukwu here. Lucas Bursky has moments where he does seem like a decent heavyweight, but he never really gets it done. I mean, he's just always losing. He's 9-5. He's kind of at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to heavyweight. He has good body kicks, sometimes some good striking, but no power in his hands, which could exploit the questionable chin of Nzechukwu. But if Bursky cannot chin Nzechukwu, then I don't really see him winning. Nzechukwu has good power in his hands. He's big even for a heavyweight. He was a former light heavyweight, now moving up to heavyweight. I think his last few fights have been at heavyweight. I mean, he lost to Justin Jacoby at light heavyweight. He lost to Vince St. Preux by split decision, which, again, are, I would say, pretty losses. The Jacoby one isn't like the worst loss in the world, but obviously, though, Vince St. Preux at that point in his career is a pretty inexcusable loss for a 32-year-old Nzechukwu who kind of was a prospect moving up to heavyweight. He beat Chris Barnett. Good job, man. You beat Chris Barnett. He is a 5'9" obese man. I like Chris Barnett. Good personality, fun fight style, but he is probably a guy you should beat, which he did. So I guess good job. You beat him. I think Barnett also hurt his ankle in the beginning stages of that fight. Like in the announcements, he hurt himself. So it is what it is. He got a win pretty much handed to him for Nzechukwu. I think he does beat Bursky here. He can grapple. He can pretty much do anything like that he needs to do to win. One thing at heavyweight that's really advantageous is the fact that if you can wrestle, you probably will go far. I mean, it's the whole Jelton Almeida sort of blueprint here. If you can grapple well at heavyweight, then you probably will find your way into the rankings at some point. Bursky, I think, loses Nzechukwu. I think he gets outboxed and possibly outgrappled by him. I'll take Nzechukwu possibly by decision, maybe by probably ground and pound TKO. I think round 2 we'll see a ground and pound TKO from Canadian Nzechukwu. Moving on, Clay Guida versus Chase Hooper. Now, this is at lightweight, I believe. I hope, yeah, it is a lightweight. Yeah, this one at lightweight, Chase Hooper has looked really good. You know, he beat Borshev, which was a really fun fight. If you haven't watched that fight, that's a really good win. I think Borshev is a monster on the feet. It takes a grappler to beat him, and Chase Hooper was able to hold his own on the feet against Borshev, which I think is pretty impressive. Again, Clay Guida, he's 42 years old. He's coming off a 2-fight losing streak. Rafa Garcia, Joaquim Silva, sorry. He beat Scott Holtzman, sorry. Like, he's not beating anybody good. He's a good personality. He's fun. He's a OG. I wouldn't call him a legend, but he's an OG, been around the game for a long time, been in the UFC for a long time. It just is, I think, Chase Hooper, who's only 25 years old, been in the UFC for a while. moved up to lightweight, has again good jiu-jitsu. That was his whole claim to fame when he first came into the UFC. Good grappling. He's bigger at lightweight. I think this weight class is better for him. Um, if he can survive Borshev and make it competitive and beat Borshev on the feet pretty much, I think he can easily outstrike Clay Guida. And if things go bad for him, then he can grapple Clay Guida. The only thing that Clay Guida even kind of has going for him at this point right now is the fact that he has good cardio, good pace. That's really it. I mean, when it comes to striking, there's no power, not a ton of output. Like he can just survive for a long time. So, like, I feel the fighter that Clay Guida does the best against is a fighter who has a really bad gas tank, who has power in the first round, who can't quite put Clay Guida away. But Chase Hooper doesn't really ever fit that mold. He can go. He has good cardio, decent cardio. I also forgot to mention that Clay Guida also got submitted by Claudio Puelles by knee bar. I mean, I think that Chase Hooper is on a similar level when it comes to Claudio Puelles on the ground, at least. I think Chase Hooper is a better overall fighter than Claudio Puelles. He just doesn't really impress me. But 38-24, wrap it up, little bro. I think it's time for Clay Guida to call it a career. At this point, you're just taking unnecessary damage in your life. So, I mean, Chase Hooper wins submission, round one, round two, whichever one you want to pick here. I think Chase Hooper easily gets this one done over Clay Guida. Just too old, too slow, good cardio. That's it. But I think everywhere in this game, besides maybe the cardio, I think Chase Hooper does it better than Clay Guida, like quite easily. I think he clears him. This should be an easy win. And I want to see Chase Hooper get like a better opponent after this. Like he fought Borshev, which I think is a step up than Clay Guida. Like I think him fighting Clay Guida is a step down for Chase Hooper. I think he should have fought somebody higher up in the rankings at lightweight right now, but it's fine. Beat Jordan Levitt, good win. Nick Fiore, whatever, kind of a shit, whatever. But yeah, I think Chase Hooper is kind of coming into his own at lightweight right now, and I think this is his weight class. Moving on. Michael Chiesa versus Max Griffin. Now, Chiesa, he kind of gives me this vibe of, I don't want to be too rude to Chiesa, but he gives me this vibe of, I don't really like to get hit. And that's me being the nicest I can possibly be. Now, Max Griffin is also 39 years old. This one is really iffy, man. But you know what? Chiesa has always been known as a guy who can't strike whatsoever. And Max Griffin can somewhat strike. And if Chiesa can't take him down, then I think there will be problems for Chiesa, because I do think he will probably quit if there's too much striking from Max Griffin. But Max Griffin doesn't carry the most power, doesn't hit the hardest. And I think Chiesa's wrestling still is good for a guy his age, right? Obviously, years ago, his grappling was better, his wrestling was better, but he's always been a wrestling guy. And I can see him kind of being a way, way bigger dude than Max Griffin and finding ways to get him down. At one point, Chiesa, I think he was really whooping on Vicente Luque on the ground. And I think that Luque has better wrestling defense than Max Griffin. But I think Chiesa wins by a boring decision here. Max Griffin can probably do some damage on the feet, but I think for as long as it's on the feet, it's going to probably end up in Chiesa getting a takedown and probably riding out a lay and pray style versus Max Griffin. I think he wins Chiesa, but again, I think anybody who has any power on the feet who can stuff some takedowns whoops on him. But yeah, I think he's only fighting because he wants to keep his commentary job, not commentary, but his little desk job he has for the UFC. So we'll see what happens, man. But I'm taking Chiesa to win this one. But we move on to Cody Durden versus Joshua Van. Now, I really do like me some Joshua Van, man. He's one of my favorite flyweights right now. But there's an issue with Joshua Van, and that he is too small for flyweight, which is a crazy thing to say because Joshua Van is 5'5", 125 pounds, could probably make, atom weight or straw weight if he needed to. If there was a straw weight class, Joshua Van would be the champion, I think, easily. He just is a bit too small for flyweight, which is kind of, again, it's insane because some of these guys are like weighing like 160 pounds fighting at fucking flyweight. It's absolutely crazy. But Cody Durden isn't like this massive dude for flyweight either. and he's quite small, kind of the same size as Joshua Van. It says he's 2 inches taller, which I guess I can kind of see that. I don't know for a fact if he is. He might be, 5'5" and he just upped his size to 5'7". We'll see. But Cody Durden has a good pace. I do think on the feet, Joshua Van is better, and I think he can stuff Cody Durden's takedowns. But the thing about Durden is that he can make it kind of boring sometimes. He can be that guy who can have this Muhammad Makayev sort of style, this guy who just holds you against the cage, knees to the thigh, the Merab Dvalishvili sort of style, and I can see him winning that way. On the feet, though, I think Joshua Van can outstrike him. So I'm going to go ahead and take my boy Joshua Van to win this just based on damage, probably in a boring fight where Cody Durden is trying to get takedowns, trying to put that pressure on Joshua Van. But Van is just outlanding him slightly. And whenever Cody Durden goes for the clinch, Van is able to just stay safe and not let Durden score any points. But overall, Joshua Van, I think, is just one of the more talented fighters at flyweight. It's just that some of these guys are just way bigger than him, and it sucks. Charles Johnson was able to knock him down several times. I don't see Cody Durden knocking him down. He doesn't have much power in his hands, not as big as Charles Johnson as well. I mean, Charles Johnson was a massive guy. It looked like it was a 2 weight class difference between him and Joshua Van in their matchup. I don't think Cody Durden will have that sort of size advantage over Joshua Van. And if that's the case, I can see Van finding ways to outstrike Cody Durden and finding ways to stay safe and not get, ragdolled by him. But Cody Durden is good. I can also see him winning this. Maybe there might be a split decision incoming in this matchup. But I will take Joshua Van to just kind of edge this one out. 29-28, maybe a split decision in there. But yeah, Joshua Van, I think, wins. Moving on. Chris Weidman versus Eric Anders. Now, this matchup was supposed to be, I believe, 2 weeks ago, and I did pick Chris Weidman. Yeah, this fight is just lame. It's a terrible fight. Eric Anders, Chris Weidman, both of them past their prime. Shouldn't be fighting. I really, really disagree with, not really disagree. Like, this fight is just boring. It's just not like entertaining. It's not like oh, what an amazing matchup. But I think I picked Chris Weidman because I thought he would implement more of his low kick game. Eric Anders just seems like he's a bit too slow now, and there's really no output to his game whatsoever. I don't feel like he has anything to offer anymore, like 37 years old. I mean, to be fair, Chris Weidman is 40, but I feel like Chris Weidman still has this little, chip on his shoulder, like he wants to still get things done. But it does worry me that, Eric Anders is just kind of, I think he's just here, like he just is here to just fight sometimes. And I don't know if he's really all the way into the game of MMA. Maybe he still is. Maybe I'm just wrong in that aspect. But again, not getting any crazy wins. Eric Anders isn't. I mean, Jamie Pickett, whatever, cut from the UFC, lost to Marc-Andre Barriault because Barriault has good cardio. And if you can't chin him, then you just probably don't beat Barriault unless like you're just a really high-level technical striker, and Eric Anders is not that guy. Like, he just is the type to get beat by Marc-Andre Barriault. Kyle Dawkins, not in the UFC anymore. Jin Young Park, Andre Muniz, loss, submission, like, is what it is. Chris Weidman beat Bruno Silva by literally cheating, eye poke, it is what it is. But before that, he was outstriking Bruno Silva, who has looked terrible. Like, Bruno Silva has been looking awful recently. Lost to Brad Tavares in a competitive fight. Then there was that Uriah Hall, whatever. That's so far in the past. It's not even the current Weidman I can really rate that upon. So taking Weidman, I just think he wants it more. It's not a super analytical breakdown for this matchup. I just think Weidman wants it more. Moving on. Randy Brown versus Brian Battle. Now, Brian Battle gets hit a lot, man. He does get hit a lot. When he fought Kevin Husset was, kind of outlanding him in that matchup, but Brian Battle was able to just keep the pressure on, take the shots of Kevin Husset and land more back, and eventually he overwhelmed Husset to get a TKO win. I don't think Randy Brown is the same way. I think Randy Brown is longer. He's rangier than Kevin Husset. I think he hits harder than Kevin Husset, or Juset, however you say his name. I mean, he's a 250 favorite right now, Brian Battle is, and I just don't agree with that. Randy Brown's not bad. Not a bad fighter. Like, he has had some iffy like decisions go his way. Like in the past, I think it wasn't Trinaldo. No, I think it was what was his name? It was Chaos Williams. I think when he fought Chaos Williams, I think he arguably lost that fight. He got dropped by him. I don't think Brian Battle carries the same amount of power as a Chaos Williams, so that does worry me. But honestly, I'm gonna take a Randy Brown to just kind of scoot on the outside and just land on Brian Battle, who's pressuring him backwards consistently, but he just can't quite land or get past the reach of Randy Brown. Randy Brown's a tricky fighter, man. I don't think Brian Battle has, the grappling game or the power advantage to really take advantage of that sort of style that Randy Brown has. Randy Brown can get a bit. Sorry, this is kind of not off topic, but kind of a weird transition. Randy Brown can get a bit too, stylish in the octagon. It does bother me sometimes. He'll like try to be a little bit too cocky in there, and maybe Brian Battle can punish Randy Brown for that. But I really just see Randy Brown on the outside, landing low kicks, landing a 1-2, a straight shot down the pipe, minorly outlanding Brian Battle, who's trying to pressure him. I want Brian Battle to win. I like his personality. I hope he does win. I think he is a way more marketable person than Randy Brown. But I think in terms of just pure styles, man, I think Randy Brown might have this one in the bag. I think he might go out there and just, again, land low kicks, screw on the outside. Brian Battle's getting frustrated, getting mad, trying to pressure him, telling him to come fight him, actually, calling him a bitch, calling him a pussy, calling him whatever you want to call him. And Randy Brown isn't falling for it, not taking the bait. And he just wins by, boring low kick decision. Randy Brown. I hope Battle wins. I want him to win. I think he's a way more fun personality and a way more entertaining fighter than Randy Brown. But I think this matchup just lends itself towards Randy Brown. Moving on. Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. This one I haven't put like a crazy amount of thought into or research, but I think I have enough on my plate to understand, or enough knowledge to understand. I think Evloev wins in a really, really close decision. Again, on the feet, I think Evloev is better than Aljo. Aljo has this sort of kind of body kick, high output style, and then goes for a takedown. And he just made it pretty boring against Calvin Kattar, which he won. But I don't see him taking down, Evloev like he did Calvin Kattar. I don't see him going out there and put on a huge jiu-jitsu game. Like, maybe Sterling can go out there and just, find a way to get the back of Evloev and just backpack him. But I think Evloev is just going to find a way to prevent that, whether it's just with his, good wrestling game. But I think on the feet, Evloev is just a bit better in terms of his boxing and his body kicks. I think their body kicks are probably both of these guys' best weapon on the feet, that they can throw a nice, hard, stinging body kick. But I think Evloev is just slightly better. And I think in terms of, wrestling, Aljo isn't like the best wrestler. He can't really, like, if we're being real here, Aljo couldn't take down O'Malley in the first round. I don't think Evloev would struggle to get down O'Malley. I think he would take him down. It didn't look like Merab was doing anything too crazy that was, super high level wrestling to take down O'Malley. It seemed like it was just normal single legs and just turning the corner, and Aljo couldn't do that against O'Malley. So I think Evloev, has better wrestling than Aljo, but honestly, Aljo's jiu-jitsu game might neutralize that, because we've seen Evloev, get kind of almost exposed on the ground in jiu-jitsu by Diego Lopez. So I don't think Evloev will go out there and try to get too many takedowns versus Aljo. And if that's the case, I think this fight will mainly take place on the feet. And I can kind of see Evloev going out there and just kind of outstriking Aljo. And probably another boring fight, honestly, man. This card might be low-key dog shit. We'll see when we get there, man. But I'm going to take Evloev by close, boring decision where he just minorly outstrikes Aljamain Sterling. Moving on. Vicente Luque versus Themba Gorimbo. Now, I will always mention this. Every single time Luque has a fight against a guy who has some amount of power, I'm going to have to mention this. This dude had brain bleeding. When Vicente Luque fought Jeff Neal put him almost in a body bag. Literally, he almost murdered Vicente Luque. And he has really not ever been the same since. Like, yeah, he beat RDA, but he was doing more grappling than he ever did in his career. The old Luke would have just banged it out and probably would have TKO'd that version of RDA. But this new version of Luke, who is not the same since the Jeff Neal fight, is more willing to grapple and not take damage. And I think that really showed when he fought Joaquin Buckley. When he fought Joaquin Buckley, man, Buckley didn't do anything that was too crazy to beat him. Like, he took down Luke and just landed simple ground and pound, and Luke just didn't do anything to try to escape that position. He could have. He could have scrambled, but I think this version of Luke is, I think, more worried about his brain and his life than winning fights right now, which is understandable. But when he's fighting a guy like Thimba Grimbo, who can take down Luke, who can land massive haymakers, I think this version of Luke just isn't built to beat Thimba Grimbo. Now, Garimbo isn't like, he's good. He's a good fighter. Do I see him being a champion or a top 5 ranked guy in the future? No. But I think this version of Luke just doesn't really match up well versus Themba Garimbo, who is explosive, who can take people down, who can land big shots, who's long, who's rangy. I just don't like this Luke, who I think in his brain or in the back of his head, he's always going to be thinking about, man, like, what if my brain starts bleeding again? What if I have to go to a hospital? What if I have to retire after this fight? Maybe I should just go ahead and just tap out here. Maybe I should go ahead and just cover up and just take these shots and make sure I don't get my head busted in, because I don't want to have to go back to the hospital and retire. I want to keep fighting. Like, I think that's always going to be in the back of Luke K's mind. And I think when it comes down to it, is he willing to grit down and land big shots versus Grimbo in the pocket and survive the ground exchanges? I don't think he is, man. I don't think he is anymore. I like Luke, but I think this mindset of him is on the decline. I think his confidence might be at an all-time low, especially after the Joaquin Buckley loss. I see Grimbo getting a pitiful round 2 TKO, possibly round 1 TKO, but I'll say round 2 just to play it safe. But we move on to the last fight on the prelims, which is Anthony Smith versus Dominic Reyes. Now, this is two guys who I think are kind of cooked. I like Dominic Reyes, but he did just beat Dustin Jacoby, and it seems like he's back, right? When I was making my prediction video between Reyes and Jacoby, I said that for me to ever pick Reyes again, I had to see it first. And so guess what? Now I've seen it first. Now I've seen it. Now I can feel comfortable ever picking Reyes, picking him again, in fact. So Anthony Smith, man, Lionheart, not his name anymore. Get that out of there. I have so many predictions of Anthony Smith. I have so many kind of redundant takes with him. Not the same guy, not the same shape. He's not this Lionheart guy, as his nickname says, who's never going to quit and make a comeback. I don't see that happening. Dominic Reyes has always been, I think, one of the better technical boxers at light heavyweight. Just that his chin has kind of ruined him, like, since he lost to John Jones. John Jones ruined him, but I think it really was the Blachowicz loss that really sent his chin spiraling, right? Because he did lose to John Jones, of course, but John Jones didn't like hurt Reyes or concuss him too severely. I think it was the actual Blachowicz loss that sent his chin spiraling. And since then, like, obviously the Ryan Spann TKO or KO was pretty bad. The Yuri Prohaska one was pretty bad. Like, I mean, if I'm being real with you, the Blachowicz KO set up the Yuri one, because the Yuri one was obviously 10 times more brutal than the Blachowicz one, and it was a horrific KO, a sick KO. Don't get me wrong, I won money on that. I predicted Yuri round 2 KO and won money on that. My first ever like real bet that I made in MMA that actually hit, and I made some bread off of. But I think, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I think Reyes' chin is still iffy, but then again, it is Anthony Smith, man. Does Anthony Smith have any power? No. Is he going to go out there, I think, chin Dominic Reyes? No. He has a somewhat mid-level jab against Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute can't strike worth a damn. I don't think Anthony Smith's wrestling is anything too crazy. I think Dominic Reyes might even have the better wrestling of them too nowadays, if I'm being real with you. I can just see Dominic Reyes probably getting a TKO here. I can see him hurting Anthony Smith at one point with like a like an uppercut or like a left hook, and putting him down. And like again, Anthony Smith, this whole Lionheart gimmick that he had in the past is, I think, long gone. And I can see him once he gets hurt, just kind of quitting. Like when he fought, I believe it Ryan Spann, in which he won by, yeah, it was Ryan Spann, which he did win by decision. Ryan Spann had him, I believe, hurt in that like first or second round, and he could have probably finished Anthony Smith, but he just chose not to for some reason. I think if that's Dominic Reyes, then I think Reyes finishes him pretty easily. So I'm gonna take Dominic Reyes by round two. I'm gonna go round three, KO TKO. I think he finds a way to hurt Anthony Smith in the third round. He's just like, I'm done. Let's get this over with. I'm getting finished. I want to keep my desk job. Moving on. Nate Landwehr, Nate the Train versus Do Ho Choi. Now, there isn't really much to go off of with Do Ho Choi anymore because, he had that military service that was mandatory in South Korea. They just declared like martial law there, so whatever. But there isn't really much to really go off this post military service Do Ho Choi. Like he had a draw with Cal Nelson, which I do think he kind of won in hindsight. Maybe I don't remember that fight exactly. It was almost 2 years ago. Beat Bill Alja by KO. I mean, I like me some Do Ho Choi, but Nate the Train can take damage. He has a really high output. Can Do Ho Choi chin Nate Landwehr? For sure. Nate the Train has had a pretty iffy chin so far in the UFC, but I don't know, man. This is actually a tough fight to predict. People are picking Nate the Train here. I can see him winning, honestly. I might take Nate the Train, but I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if Do Ho Choi get a KO over him. I wouldn't really at all. Do Ho Choi, he can be hurt. I don't see Nate Landwehr going out there and like really hurting. Actually, I do see him doing that. I do see like Nate the Train, pouring it on, landing a bunch of strikes over and over and over again in a really fun fight. Honestly, this probably will be fight of the night. I can really see Do Ho Choi probably hurting Nate the Train at some point, but Nate the Train getting back up. He recovers very quickly, and I think once he recovers, we're going to see Do Ho Choi try to finish him, but not be able to. We're going to see Nate the Train just land a bunch of output, recover fast, get back up to his feet if he has to, and then just pour on Do Ho Choi, who can be hurt him in a moment, and just have a nice back and forth and a really great moment that leads to a fight of the night. I'll take Nate the Train by KO. Probably, I would see standing TKO round three, round two. It's going to be a banger fight, but I think Do Ho Choi hurts him, but Nate the Train survives and then just pressures him and lands a bunch of shots. Kind of similar to the David Onama fight that Nate the Train had, which was a really, really fun fight, which got fight of the night. Moving on. Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie. Now, I'll keep it real with you real quick, man. I will probably never pick Kron Gracie to win a UFC fight unless it's like against some absolute scrub that shouldn't be in the UFC. Guy is a complete one-dimensional jiu-jitsu guy. Can't strike, can't do anything besides pull guard and do jiu-jitsu. And against Bryce Mitchell, it's not going to happen. Sorry. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen whatsoever. Bryce Mitchell is going to be good enough to stay safe, to not get submitted. I'll be shocked. I'll be thoroughly shocked if Bryce Mitchell gets submitted by Kron Gracie. I think at this point, if you know what you're doing in jiu-jitsu and you know how to stay safe, and you know what to see, and you're just fine. You're not going to get submitted, and as long as you're on top in MMA, you're going to win. Like, you're going to win by control time. So I think no matter what, on the ground, Bryce Mitchell is going to be on top for the majority of this fight. And if he doesn't get submitted, he wins. But even if it's not on the ground, I don't see Kron Gracie doing anything with his hands to do anything to Bryce Mitchell. This, I think, is more than a perfect comeback fight for Bryce Mitchell. Obviously, he got almost murdered. He got really badly KO'd by Josh Emmett. And I think fighting Kron Gracie, a guy who has no power in the hands, can't really strike, only jiu-jitsu guy, it's just playing right into the style of Bryce Mitchell, who mainly wrestles, can do jiu-jitsu. I don't see Bryce Mitchell losing this. This should be the biggest odds-on favorite of the entire card. It's not. I think Chase Hooper is the bigger favorite. No, I think Bryce Mitchell should be the odds-on. Like, I think he should be like guaranteed to win this. The only way Kron Gracie wins is by some fluke submission. I don't see it happening, man. So I'll go ahead and take Bryce Mitchell by decision. But moving on to our feature fight, we have Cyril Gahn versus Alexander Volkov 2, numero dos. Um Low key, I mean, I've been wanting to take Volkov because I do think he has looked better in his recent matchups. Like when he fought Pavlovich, he looked really good, was able to sit there and stay safe and not get hit by Pavlovich clean at all and just outstrike him and kind of. I would say he exposed Pavlovich more than what Aspinall did, man. Like he went out there and had a better performance. Of course, Aspinall KO'd Pavlovich, but I think it's more impressive to go out there and stay safe and not get hurt and just really outstrike Pavlovich for, was it 3 rounds? For 3 rounds easily. Like he made that Pavlovich fight look very, very easy. Tai Tuivasa, yeah. I mean, good win. Romanov, good win, I guess. Rosenstrike, good win. You know, Rosenstrike has been winning a little bit recently, so I think it's a good win from Volkov. That was, I know, 2.5 years ago, but still a good win. Even now, it has aged pretty well. And then when it comes to Cyril Gahn, it's kind of the question of, do you think Cyril Gahn is still really into MMA? Like I know he was doing some movies in France recently. He's been more focused on the outside, the fame aspect of being a fighter now. And it kind of raises the question of, do you think Cyril Gahn is the same Cyril Gahn that fought Volkov the first time when he won, right? That was the Cyril Gahn who had bigger title aspirations, who was on the come up, who was taking MMA a lot more serious. And it just seems like nowadays Cyril Gahn just doesn't take the game like how he used to. So do you think Cyril Gahn has regressed? I don't think he's improved since then. And I think Volkov has improved. So I really wouldn't be shocked if Volkov went out there and got a win. But I think even with that being said, man, I think Volkov does play right into the Cyril Gahn game, and Cyril Gahn can just sit there and tap low kicks and win the exact same way that he won the first time. That's what I see. I see a boring decision where Cyril Gahn, I wouldn't call it boring, but I see a clear decision where Cyril Gahn wins, probably 29-28. Maybe Volkov does something in the third round to win that round for himself, but I can see Cyril Gahn going out there and just landing his low kicks and just using his footwork because he has, again, still elite footwork. So I'm not going to predict a huge fall off in skill from Cyril Gahn. I think he probably is taking it a bit more serious now that he's back into a training camp. But I don't think he's gotten better since he fought Volkov. But I don't think he's gotten any worse. And I still think this version of Gahn that we possibly do see is going to still be better than Volkov, but just minorly. I think this fight will be closer than it was the first time, but I can just see Cyril Gahn on the outside, using his footwork, scooting around, landing low kicks, using his little tapping ones that don't do much damage. But then that one big thudding one that he really wants to put everything into when he sees the right timing for it. I can see him shifting to the outside, landing right hands, left hands, using his in and out movement versus Volkov, who is, let's be real here. I like Volkov, but he's a bit plotty at times. I think the footwork of Cyril Gahn will be too much for Volkov to overcome, and I think Cyril Gahn wins this by scooting on the outside and just doing what he did in the first matchup and winning it that way. Moving on to our co-main event, Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Machado Gary. I'm gonna be 100% real with you right now. I don't think that Shavkat's gonna have an easy matchup, right? I think the consensus narrative right now is that Shavkat's gonna go out there and just dominate Ian Gary. I don't really see that happening. I think Ian Gary is better than people give him credit for. Now, of course, do I like Ian Gary? No. Do majority of people like Ian Gary? No. Is he annoying? Yes. But is he a bad fighter? No. Is he talented? Yes. Like Ian Gary, I think it's a little bit too much shit for his outside personality, and people take what they see on the outside and kind of apply it to what he does inside the octagon, which I think I fundamentally disagree with. But Ian Gary can go out there and he probably can find ways to just outstrike Shavkat. But do I see Ian Gary chinning him? No, I think Shavkat's chin showed how good it was versus Jeff Neal. I think his wrestling game has improved since his time on the regional scene. One thing that I do remember people were kind of commentating about Rachmanov was that I think he did get taken down on the regional scene and controlled, but came back and won the fight. So um, I'm gonna be real with you guys here. I think Shavkat wins, but I think this is the first time Shavkat wins by not getting a finish. I think he has a 100% finish rate. I'm pretty positive of that, but I don't see him finishing Ian Gary. He does carry some power. Ian Gary can be hurt, like against Song Kanan. Song Kanan did drop him with a left hand, a counter left hand, but I think Ian Gary was just massively disrespecting Song Kanan and went for just a kind of lazy defense on a body shot. I don't see him being lazy versus Shavkat. I don't see him disrespecting Shavkat's striking game unless he just is that much better than him, which I don't think he will be or is. Shavkat can grapple, so can Ian Gary. I mean, Ian Gary, I think is a good dog here, man. It wouldn't really strike me or make me too surprised if Ian Gary goes out there and makes it boring and does like what he did against not against MVP, but maybe on the feet, kind of like a similar sort of deal. Like let's say like instead of grappling MVP, Ian Gary went out there and outstruck him. I could see that, which he didn't really. He kind of got exposed on the striking against MVP, which I guess is the case here. Like, would Shavkat do better versus MVP than Ian Gary? Yes, I think Shavkat would possibly finish MVP on the ground. I think he would take MVP down and finish him. Um, so that's my whole basis, man. Like it's hard. This fight I think is closer than people think it is. Shavkat, he can be hit. His hands are down quite often. I think Ian Gary's more defensively sound. Um, but Shavkat has way more finishing potential. I think his grappling, his offensive wrestling is a bit better than Ian Gary's, even though Ian Gary can do it. But I do think that Ian Gary's footwork is better than Shavkat's, but is that enough to make up the difference in the power between the two and the better grappling of Shavkat? I don't know, man. It's tough, man. People love to overrate Shavkat, I think, nowadays. I do think he does win, but I am worried about this matchup for him. I'm going to take Shavkat by decision. This is the first time he doesn't finish somebody in the octagon. So, yeah. Moving on to our main event, Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Asakura. Now, I've watched some good tape on Kai Asakura, and I just don't think he beats Pantoja, man. He gets hit way too often, man. He gets hit way too consistently. When he fought Juan Archuleta, I mean, he was getting hit so much, man. So much. And the way Pantoja strikes is that he is willing to get hit, but he comes back and he hits you twice as hard. He likes to walk into the pocket and exchange. Now, that does kind of play into Kai Sakura's game because Kai Sakura likes to fight in the pocket, loves to throw knees to the body in the pocket, and he will be more dynamic than Pantoja, but he can be taken down as well. Archuleta took him down quite a bit. I think somebody else took him down, but I forget who it was exactly. I haven't watched film in like a little bit of time, like a couple weeks or so. But from what I remember, man, it just seems like Kai Sakura, yes, he has finishing potential, and yes, he probably can beat some other flyweights, but he gets hit way too consistently. Pantoja is not a bad fighter. He can wrestle, and I think when it comes to the wrestling and the striking, I see Pantoja doing both. I see him outstriking Kai Sakura, and I see him taking down Kai Sakura and controlling him when he needs to. Now, again, like this is MMA. Anything can happen. Can Kai Sakura go out there and land a nice knee to the body and put down Pantoja for sure? Or a nice like right hand that chins Pantoja for sure? At some point, Pantoja's chin has to crack. His fight style, at some point, with his age and his fight style, I think he will get hurt and dropped and finished by somebody at some point. But is that guy Kai Sakura? I don't know. I don't know. It could be. It could not be. We'll see, man. We'll see. But I think in terms of just when it comes to just pure style matchup, I think Pantoja gets it done, man. I think he just goes out there and he takes down Kai Sakura, and when it's not on the ground, he lands big overhands on his chin. He just his hands just aren't there. His head movement just isn't there. Asakura has no head movement whatsoever at all. And I think you have to move your head. I think you have to be like a Steve Erceg type who has really good boxing, who can move their head. Even though he just got chinned by what was his name? The New Zealand kid. what's his name? Oh my god, I forget his name, man. Don't blink. Kai Car France. Sorry, yes, Kai Car France. It's fucking same first name, and I forget that. Whatever. But you have to be that type of guy, like a Steve Urseg, who has good inside pocket movement, and who moves their head. And I don't think Kai Sakura does that. He has power, and he's strong, and he's bigger than a lot of flyweights. That's what I think he will be. I think he'll be a better version of Charles Johnson. That's what I think Kai Sakura will be in the UFC. Do I hope he wins? Kind of, a little bit. I kind of am feeling the change up in championships. The UFC, I think, does obviously want Kai Sakura to win to open up that that Asian market more, that Japanese market, because he's a huge name over in Japan. I think he gets I think like 300,000 views on his YouTube consistently. I haven't checked recently, but when I checked it like a few months ago, he was getting some really, really good views on YouTube. But Kai Sakura is a big name in Japan. The UFC, they're going to want to open that Japan market more. It sucks that, you know, what's his face lost, a Japanese guy, flyweight. Tatsuro Taira is his name. I blanked on his name for a second, but Tatsuro Taira, sucks that he lost because I think the UFC would love to have like a Japan fight night card with Tatsuro Taira and Kai Sakura on there as the main event, fighting for that flyweight championship at some point. But no, obviously he lost. It is what it is. But again, when it comes to this matchup, man, I think Pantoja is going to take him down and control him. He finds ways to get the back quite consistently. He'll put the body lock in. He'll take down Kai Sakura. Kai Sakura will have his moments. He'll find his timings, or he'll land a big shot on Pantoja, but Pantoja's chin is really good. I think he'll eat those shots from Kai Sakura. But other than that, man, I think Pantoja just gets it done, man. Striking, ground game, I think he wins quite easily. I might say by like submission in like round 3 or 4. Like once this fight like kind of gets fully settled in and we get into the championship rounds, I do see Pantoja just finding a submission, rear naked choke, gets the back, body lock locked in, and chokes out Kaya Sakura. Probably unconscious. I don't think he'll tap. I don't think he'll tap whatsoever. So that's my prediction. Bam. So there you guys go. That was the Kendall MMA full card prediction and breakdowns for UFC 310. Again, if you want to join the Topology group, a link is in the description down below. Go check that out. But with that being said, I'm out of here, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications. See y'all later. Peace.